The day had started like any other for the single mother. She woke up before the sun, quickly made breakfast for her little girl, and then rushed off to her first job at a small diner. By noon, she was already exhausted, but had another shift waiting for her at the local store. She had learned to survive on little sleep and endless cups of coffee. Life wasn't easy, but she had no choice. Her daughter depended on her, and giving up was never an option. The sky turned gray by the time she left her second job. Rain started falling in thin, cold drops, the kind that slowly soaked through clothes and made the air heavy with chill. She pulled her coat tighter and walked faster, hoping to get home before it got worse. The road was almost empty, only a few cars rushing past, their headlights reflecting on the wet pavement. That's when she saw him. An old man stood near the bus stop, shivering under the rain. He wasn't holding an umbrella, and his clothes looked out of place, like he had left home in a hurry. He glanced around as if searching for something, but couldn't find it. His shoulders drooped, and his hands trembled slightly as he tried to shield himself from the cold. At first, she thought maybe someone would stop to help him. But car after car sped by. People walking with umbrellas didn't even slow down. Everyone seemed too busy, too wrapped up in their own world to notice him. She almost walked past too. She was tired. Her feet ached. Her daughter was waiting at home, and helping a stranger could mean trouble. That thought crossed her mind for a second, but then the man stumbled a little, holding onto the bus stop pole for support, and something inside her shifted. He looked so lost, and so alone. She walked closer and asked softly, "Sir, are you okay?" The old man lifted his head slowly. Rain dripped from his hair. His eyes were tired, confused, as if it took him a moment to understand her words. He shook his head and said in a trembling voice, I can't find my way home, I think. I'm lost." He spoke with hesitation, like he was embarrassed to admit it. She felt a tug at her heart. He reminded her of her own father before he passed away, proud, independent, but suddenly so fragile when illness took over. "Do you have a phone? Maybe I can call someone for you," she asked. He patted his pocket slowly, then shook his head. No phone, no wallet, nothing. The rain fell harder now, soaking them both. She looked at the empty street, then at him. He was clearly too weak to walk far. Leaving him there didn't feel right. "Come with me," she said finally. "It's not much, but at least you can get warm and dry." The old man hesitated, as if unsure whether to trust her. But then he nodded slowly. Her house wasn't far, just a small rented place at the end of the street. She worked 2 jobs just to keep the lights on and food on the table. It wasn't much, but it was home. When they arrived, her little daughter ran to the door, surprised to see her mother bring someone with her. The girl looked at the old man with wide, curious eyes but didn't say anything. "Go change into something dry," the mother told her daughter gently before handing the old man a towel and one of her late father's old shirts. It was a little big for him, but it was dry and warm. She quickly heated some soup on the stove while the man sat at the small kitchen table, his hands wrapped around the towel like it was the only thing keeping him steady. He didn't speak much, only murmured a soft thank you when she placed the bowl of soup in front of him. He ate slowly, like he hadn't had a warm meal in days. Her daughter, now in dry clothes, climbed onto the chair next to him. "Are you okay?" the little girl asked softly. The old man managed a small smile. "I will be, thanks to your mother," he said quietly. The single mother sat across from him, watching him carefully. She had so many questions. Who was he? Where was his family? How did he end up lost in the rain? But she didn't ask. Not tonight. He looked like he had carried enough weight already. For now, all that mattered was that he was safe, warm, and not alone. What she didn't know was that this small act of kindness was about to change everything in her life. The next morning, the small house felt warmer than usual. The rain had stopped, and soft sunlight slipped through the thin curtains. The old man was still sitting at the kitchen table, sipping the tea she had made for him. He looked cleaner now, in the dry shirt she had given him, but there was still something distant in his eyes. The single mother had stayed up late thinking about him. She didn't know his story, only that he had been out in the cold, lost, with no way to call anyone. She had brought him in because leaving him there didn't feel right. Still, a part of her wondered if she had taken a risk by letting a stranger into her home. Her daughter, on the other hand, had no such worries. Children didn't see the world through suspicion and fear. To her, the old man was someone who needed help, and that was enough. She carried a plate with some toast and set it in front of him. "You should eat," she said softly. He looked up at her for a moment, then nodded. "Thank you," he said again. His voice was calm, but carried a heaviness she couldn't quite understand. As he ate slowly, the little girl sat across from him, swinging her legs. "Did you find your home yet?" she asked innocently. The man paused, setting the toast down. "Not yet," he replied. His tone was gentle, but his eyes seemed to drift somewhere far away, like he was searching for something inside his own mind. The mother watched him carefully. He didn't seem dangerous, just tired. Tired in a way that went deeper than one night in the rain could explain. "You can rest here until you figure things out," she told him. "But I have to go to work later." He looked at her then, really looked at her, as if seeing her properly for the first time. The lines on her face, the tiredness in her eyes, the way she carried herself like someone who had learned to survive no matter how hard life got. "You work a lot?" he asked slowly. She let out a small laugh without humor. "2 jobs. Sometimes 3 if I can find extra hours." He frowned slightly. "And you still?" He didn't finish the sentence, but his eyes wandered around the small, worn-out house, the second-hand furniture, the peeling paint on the walls. She shrugged. "It's enough to keep a roof over our heads. Enough to buy food. That's all that matters." For a long moment he said nothing. He just stared at his tea as if lost in thought. Her daughter broke the silence. "Mama works very hard," she said proudly. "But she always makes time for me." The man smiled faintly at that. "She must love you very much," he said softly. The girl nodded quickly. "More than anything." The mother tried to hide the emotion in her eyes. She didn't want anyone's pity. She didn't want to be seen as a charity case. She had been through enough already, losing her husband, struggling to pay rent, juggling jobs while trying to raise her daughter alone. Life had been one long uphill climb. But she had never complained. Complaining didn't put food on the table. The man seemed to sense her thoughts. "You're strong," he said finally. She gave a small smile but didn't respond. Strong? Maybe, or maybe she was just someone who didn't have a choice. After breakfast, she offered to call the police or a shelter to help him find his family, but he shook his head quickly. "No police. I just need some time," he said quietly, almost nervously. She found that strange but didn't press him. Instead, she gave him a blanket and told him he could rest on the couch while she was gone. "I'll be back in the evening," she said. "There's food in the fridge if you need it." Her daughter tugged at her sleeve. "Can he stay until you come back?" The mother hesitated for a moment, then nodded. She looked at the old man. "Will you be all right here?" He nodded slowly. "Yes, thank you." Something about him made her trust him, even though she didn't know why. Maybe it was the quiet sadness in his eyes, or the way he spoke so softly, never demanding anything. As she left for work, she glanced back at the small house. Inside was a stranger she knew nothing about. But deep down, she felt she hadn't made a mistake bringing him in. What she didn't know was that this quiet man was carrying a secret that would soon turn her whole life upside down. The sun had already set when the single mother returned home from work. Her shoulders ached from standing all day, and her hands were sore from carrying heavy boxes at the store. As she pushed open the door, The familiar smell of her small home wrapped around her like a blanket, warm, comforting, but always tinged with exhaustion. The old man was sitting quietly on the couch, the blanket she had given him folded neatly beside him. Her daughter sat near him, talking about her day at school, her small hands moving excitedly as she spoke. The old man listened closely, nodding now and then, as if her words mattered more than anything in the world. The mother put down her bag and sighed softly. She was glad nothing seemed out of place. A small part of her had worried about leaving a stranger in her home, but seeing him sitting there so calmly made her feel she had done the right thing. "Did you eat?" she asked him as she went to the kitchen. "Yes," he said quietly. "Thank you for everything." She looked at him for a moment. He seemed different somehow. Maybe it was the light in the room, or maybe it was the way he sat, straight-backed but with tired eyes, as though he carried years of stories behind that silence. They ate dinner together, a simple meal of rice and vegetables. Her daughter chatted happily, filling the quiet air, while the mother and the old man listened. After dinner, when the girl had gone to do her homework, the old man finally spoke. His voice was slow, thoughtful. "You work very hard," he said softly, watching her clean the dishes. She gave a small shrug. "I have to. You do all this alone?" "Yes." Her voice didn't carry anger or bitterness, only a simple truth. He hesitated before asking, "Your husband?" She paused, then answered quietly, "He passed away years ago. It's been just me and my daughter since then." The old man lowered his gaze, his hands tightening slightly on the edge of the table. "I'm sorry," he murmured. She shook her head. "It's life. You learn to survive." There was a long pause. The sound of her daughter flipping notebook pages in the other room filled the silence. Finally the old man said, "And yet, you helped me. A stranger. When you have so little yourself." She looked at him then. His eyes were watching her closely, as if trying to understand something deeper. "Because it was the right thing to do," she said simply. "If I was lost and alone, I'd want someone to help me too." The old man leaned back slowly, his face thoughtful. For a long moment he didn't speak. Then he asked, "Has life always been this hard for you?" She thought about it. The long hours, the unpaid bills, the constant worry about the future. Then she thought about her daughter's smile, the way they laughed over silly things even when there wasn't much to laugh about. "It's hard," she admitted finally. "But we have each other. That's enough." Something in her words seemed to touch him. His eyes softened, and for the first time since she met him, he looked less like a lost man and more like someone carrying a heavy secret. "You remind me of someone I knew," he said quietly. "Who?" she asked. He hesitated, then shook his head. "Someone who believed kindness mattered, even when the world didn't give any back." She didn't know what to say to that. Later that evening, when her daughter had gone to bed, the old man sat by the small window, looking out at the dark street. The mother joined him with 2 cups of tea. "You should try to call someone tomorrow," she said gently. "Maybe your family is looking for you." He gave a small, almost bitter smile. "Family," he said softly, as if tasting the word. "Sometimes people have family and still feel alone." She looked at him carefully, realizing there was pain behind those words. "Is that why you were out there? Alone in the rain?" He didn't answer right away. Finally, he said, "Maybe I wanted to see if there was still kindness left in the world." His words stayed with her long after they both went to sleep. She didn't know why, but she felt there was something about this man she didn't yet understand, something that was about to change everything. The next morning started like any other. The single mother woke up early, made breakfast, and got ready for work. Her daughter prepared for school, chatting cheerfully as usual. But something felt different in the air. The old man was quieter than before, almost as if he was waiting for something. She offered him more tea, but he seemed distracted, his eyes often drifting toward the window. He watched the world outside like someone who hadn't been part of it in a long time. "You're leaving again?" He asked softly as she packed her bag for work. Yes, she said. I'll be back in the evening. He nodded slowly but didn't say much after that. The day passed like any other. She worked both jobs, tired but determined. It was almost dark when she returned home, carrying a small bag of groceries. She pushed open the door and froze. Parked outside her small house was a black car. Not an ordinary car, a polished, expensive one that didn't belong on this street of old houses and broken fences. Two men in suits stood near it, talking quietly. When they saw her, they straightened immediately. She stepped inside quickly, her heart beating fast. Her daughter ran to her with wide eyes. "Mama," she whispered. They came to see him. The old man was sitting on the couch, calm but serious. The two men in suits followed her inside. One of them spoke politely. "Ma'am, we've been looking for him for 2 days." She looked at the old man, confused. "You know them?" He gave a small nod. The man in the suit continued. "He disappeared without telling anyone. We've been worried sick. His family. The company. Everyone has been searching. Company? Family?" None of it made sense to her. "Wait," she said slowly, looking between them. Who exactly is he?" The two men exchanged a glance, then one of them said carefully, "He's the chairman of one of the biggest companies in the country. A billionaire. He left without telling anyone where he was going." The words hit her like cold water. Billionaire? Chairman? She looked at the old man again, the stranger who had sat at her table, eaten her food, slept under her roof. He didn't look like someone with power or money. He looked like just a lonely man. She felt her knees weaken a little. "Why didn't you tell me?" she asked softly, almost in disbelief. The old man finally spoke, his voice steady but filled with quiet emotion. "Because I wanted to see the world without my name, without my money. I wanted to know if kindness still existed. If someone would help me for nothing in return." He looked at her with tired eyes. "And you did." She didn't know what to say. Her heart was pounding. A billionaire? She had been cooking for him, worrying about him like he was just another old man with no one to care for him. The men in suits moved closer. "Sir, we should take you home. Everyone is waiting." But the old man raised his hand. "Not yet." They stopped immediately. Clearly, he was used to being obeyed. He turned back to the single mother. "You didn't ask me for anything," he said slowly. "You didn't even know who I was. You just helped because it was the right thing to do." She swallowed hard, still unsure what to say. "Anyone would have done the same." He shook his head. "No, many people walked past me in the rain. Only you stopped." Her daughter stood next to her, holding her hand tightly, eyes wide as if sensing something big was about to happen. The old man looked at them both for a long moment. There was something in his gaze, respect, gratitude, maybe even affection. Then he said words she would never forget. "I owe you more than you can imagine." The room felt silent after the old man's words. The single mother stood frozen, trying to take in everything. Just 2 days ago, he was a stranger, lost and alone in the rain. Now men in suits were standing at her door, calling him the chairman of a giant company. A billionaire. It didn't feel real. The old man slowly stood up, his movements calm but purposeful. "You gave me something I haven't felt in a long time," he said softly. "Kindness." Without asking for anything in return. The mother shook her head quickly. "I didn't help you for a reward," she said. Her voice was steady but quiet. "I just did what anyone should do." He smiled faintly. "No, not everyone would have done it. Many walked past me. But you stopped. You shared what little you had. You reminded me what kindness looks like when it asks for nothing." The men in suits watched silently, waiting for his instructions, but he didn't move toward the door. Instead, he turned to the little girl standing beside her mother. He crouched down slowly, his old knees stiff, so he was at her eye level. "You have a brave mother," he said softly to the child. The girl nodded proudly. "Mama takes care of everything," she said. "She never gives up." The old man looked at the mother again, his eyes warm. "I can see that," he murmured. Then he straightened slowly, his voice steady but filled with something deep, something final. "I want to help you," he said. "You gave me shelter when I had nothing but my name. Now I want to give you a chance at a better life." The mother froze. "What do you mean?" "I mean," he continued, "I will make sure you never have to worry about rent again. About food. About your daughter's education. About working 3 jobs just to survive." She blinked at him, stunned. "I can't accept that," she whispered. But the old man shook his head firmly. "This isn't charity," he said. "This is gratitude. You reminded me what it feels like to be treated like a human being, not a name, not a bank account. I want to do the same for you." Her throat tightened, words catching before they could come out. She thought about all the nights she had cried quietly after her daughter was asleep, all the time she had gone without eating so her child could have enough, all the rent notices slipped under the door, all the time she had prayed for a break that never came. And now, here stood a man offering to change everything. He looked at the men in suits. "Prepare everything," he said simply. "A house. A scholarship for the child. A job for her mother if she wants it. She should never have to struggle like this again." The men nodded immediately, pulling out phones, already making arrangements. The mother shook her head again, still overwhelmed. "I don't know what to say," she whispered. "Say yes," he replied softly. "Let me do this for you. And for me." She stared at him for a long moment, then finally nodded slowly, tears welling in her eyes. "Thank you," she said softly. "Thank you. So much." The old man smiled gently, the lines on his face deepening. For the first time since she met him, he didn't look lost anymore. 2 weeks later, the small rented house was empty. The mother and her daughter had moved into a warm, safe home arranged by the old man. Her daughter had been enrolled in a good school with all expenses covered. And for the first time in years, the mother didn't have to run from job to job, collapsing at night with aching feet. The old man visited them often. He sat at their table, drank tea, listened to the little girl's stories. He laughed more now, as though the loneliness he had carried for years had finally begun to lift. One evening, as they all sat together, he said softly, "I left my house because I wanted to see the world without my money. I wanted to know if real kindness still existed. You gave me that answer. And in return, I want you to have the life you deserve." The mother looked at him with gratitude in her eyes. She had helped a stranger once without knowing who he was. That simple choice had changed everything. And as the little girl laughed in the background, the mother realized something. Sometimes the smallest act of kindness can open the door to the biggest miracles.